What's up guys, I'm Newbie Dave and today we're making an XP farm. Let's get started. So how's it going guys? Hope y'all are having a great week. I said last time that all of the episodes coming up are all going to be leading up to the dragon fight. And in order to start getting ready for that, if you take a look at my equipment here, it's in pretty rough shape. I'm going to lose these boots any day now. My chest and my leggings are in bad shape. My helmet's okay because I actually just recently replaced it because my helmet broke. Yeah, I never really enchanted this stuff. Even though it's diamond, it wears out. So I'm going to need some new gear pretty soon, which means I'm going to need to enchant it, which means I'm going to need levels. And if you take a look, I'm running pretty low on levels. I recently made a second axe and enchanted it with Unbreaking 3 and combined it with Speedy McChopperson and got a really great axe out of it, but it ate up most of my levels. So I'm going to need to get a lot of levels back. As I start doing more enchanting, I'm going to need an easy way to get more levels without having to go grind a bunch of mobs. So I decided it's time to go build an XP farm. Now this XP farm that I'm going to be building, the design came from It's Me James on YouTube. I really liked his build and it's driven by kelp. So fortunately I've got tons and tons of kelp right off the coast here. So I'm going to go harvest some of this stuff. We don't need a whole lot, really only need 4. I'm going to go ahead and get some more just in case it breaks or something goes wrong. What I like about this particular XP farm is it's really kind of 3 farms in one. It's primarily used to get a lot of XP very quickly, but you also get a lot of kelp from it, which can be used in other things. And you get a lot of, I think it's dried kelp, but those can actually be used as a food source, even though it's not a very good food source. And it can also be used to make dried kelp blocks, which can be a good fuel source, and they can also be good for builds. Now I've decided to go ahead and build this XP farm up here next to the iron farm. I think this is going to be a good spot for it. I'm going to sort of use the same colors. I'm going to use black stone, and I'm not going to use the basalt this time. I'm just going to use some stone bricks. But I think that that color palette will look really nice for this build, and so I'm going to put it up here by the iron farm. It'll be nice and out of the way, so it can run while we go do other things like harvest our crops, or make potions, or do whatever else. So this is a good spot. It is kind of important that this build, again, be completely within one chunk. It's not a very big build, but if part of it is spanning across different chunks, then it has the potential to break, even if you're standing right in front of it. So what we're going to need for this build are in the bottom 2 rows down here. You're going to need a bunch of building blocks, some sand, some gravel, hoppers, smokers, chests, some redstone components. I'll break this down into some redstone dust as well. And then some pistons and sticky pistons, and then some kelp. Just everything down here is what we're going to need for this build. So to get started, we're going to go back here and we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to do black stone bricks on the corners. So it needs to be 6 blocks across. And then we'll come out, let me see, I think it's 1, 2, I forget the exact dimensions. I think that'll be good. And then we'll do some stone bricks in the front. Okay, and then on the side of this thing, we're going to build a redstone clock. It's a pretty simple build, so we're going to put a redstone there on the ground, a solid block next to it, a redstone torch on the side, another solid block on top of that, and then on top of this middle block, put a repeater facing that way, and then finally another solid block, whoops, crouch, and place that next to the repeater. As you can see, this just sends a redstone pulse all the way around, back and forth, back and forth. On the front of this block, we'll put a lever, and that way we can turn this thing on and off. Okay, now around back, we're going to place a couple more solid blocks on the back side here, and then we will do redstone all the way across. This is going to carry that redstone signal from the clock back to behind the back of this thing. In front of each of those redstone dusts, we're going to place our 4 sticky pistons. So 1, 2, 3, 4. They receive the redstone signal, and when we turn this thing on, you can see they just start going. So now we'll build this up one more layer. And in front of our sticky pistons, we're going to put gravel. The original build for this had you put sand here, but I noticed that as this was running, sometimes some of the blocks of sand that are going to go above these sticky pistons would sometimes break or fall. And one of the comments recommended using gravel in the front instead of sand, and that would fix it. And after I did that in my test build, I didn't have any more problems with it. So we're going to do gravel in the front. Okay, so now we're going to take our sand and put it on top of each of these pistons. And it's going to go 2 levels up, just like that. And then we'll bring the whole outside of the build up 2 more levels to match it. Okay, so now we need to come around back here again, and I'm going to put some temporary blocks here just to get up. And we're going to do 1 more row of regular blocks right there, and then put our 4 standard pistons on top of those. Now, to link these up with redstone, I actually need to break this block to get inside there. And we're going to put a redstone torch on that block, a redstone torch on that one. Let's go ahead and do the blackstone to match. And we'll do another redstone torch on that one. So we're basically using these redstone torches to kind of daisy chain the signal upwards. And then across the back we'll put 4 more blocks there and redstone on top of those. So the redstone torches are going to transfer the redstone signal up to the 4 top pistons. And so now we can see, if we turn this on again, the sticky pistons are grabbing the gravel and moving it back and forth, and then the regular pistons on top are also going, and they're out of sync with each other. So when the sticky pistons are extended, the regular pistons are retracted. Now we're going to bring this whole thing up 3 more blocks. And we'll go ahead and close up the sides, but we're going to leave the front open for now. And we'll do some blocks across the top like this. So now we should have something that looks like this. Now, coming around to the front, we're going to do a double chest right there. It's going to be 1 row down from the top row of blocks. And then we'll get back on top, and we'll do hoppers going down into the chest. And then on the side, do 2 more hoppers going into those 2. So make sure that they're all connected up correctly. The 2 hoppers in the middle are going into the double chest, and the 2 on the sides are going into the middle hoppers. Now on the ground, right below this double chest, we're going to put our smokers. But before we do that, we're going to take out these 2 blocks and put in some more gravel on top. This was again part of that same tip to keep the sand from breaking, was to put some gravel behind the smokers. So we'll put the smokers on the ground and the 2 hoppers going into them from the double chest. If this looks familiar, it should. This is basically almost the exact same build as the auto smoker that I did in the last weekend update. It's just a much bigger, fancier version of it. Now below this and in front of it, we're going to put 1 more double chest. And now we need to get behind that to put some more hoppers in. So I'm going to dig down a little bit, break out this dirt, and crouch and put these, crouch and put these last 2 hoppers going into that double chest. Alright, so this is what the front should look like now. We've got all the hoppers on top going to the chest. The hoppers below that will pull items out of the chest into the smokers. Once they finish smelting it, the hoppers below that will pull them out and deposit them into the chest at the bottom. Alright, so let's get back up on top and we'll work on the inside now. So in front of these hoppers, we want to put some glass blocks. So we need to bring this out a little bit more. And we'll put a temporary block there, and then our glass blocks in front. These don't have to be glass, they can be any sort of full block. We just want to make sure that the water that we're going to put in here isn't going to spill out. So I'll bring this up a little bit more like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and use black stone for the top here. I think it'll kind of give it a nice black frame outline, and then the regular stone bricks will fill it in. Now on top here, we're going to do stone bricks right there. And we need to get inside and put buttons on the bottom of each of these. This will keep the water from spilling out too far. And now we need to get it back out. And then right here, we're actually going to go up one more level with the regular stone bricks. And then we're going to use slabs across the top here. And we're going to waterlog all of these slabs. So just put a bucket of water. Whoops. Oh, I see what the problem is. Okay, the slabs need to go on the bottom of these like that. Now we can waterlog these slabs, and the bricks around the outside will keep the water from spilling out, but the water will... Uh-oh, lost some of my sand. Okay, so there should be water... Nerd pull up here. So there should be water coming down. I'm not sure why it's not flowing through all of them. Okay, so quick update. I took out the slabs from the top. They seem to be preventing the water from flowing down, which is what we want, and they're not really necessary, and it will also give us easy access to get in there without having to break anything. So if we look at it from the front now, you should see the water flowing from the back to the front, and those buttons are keeping it from flowing up on the second block there. It just flows down from the first level. So now we just need to put the kelp in, and this thing will be about ready to go. So I'm going to come back on top here. I'll crouch down so I don't fall. I'll go and go down in here and just put the kelp on the sand and swim back out. Okay, so before you turn this thing on, just give it a once over. Yeah, I've got some loose redstone up there, so when I was putting the water in, some of it spilt out, and when water comes into contact with redstone dust, it breaks the redstone dust. So just make sure that everything in the back here is still connected. You've got your redstone clock over here, it looks good. The redstone dust going across the back, our redstone torches, and redstone dust across the top. Oh, lost some sand here. Also looks like one of our pieces of gravel got replaced by sand, so I'll put that back. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some... apparently some of my building materials also went through this system. So check the smokers, check the hoppers, make sure that nothing's clogging it. Go ahead and put a fuel source into each of the smokers. I'm just going to put some blocks of coal in there because these last a very long time. So a single block of coal can smelt 80 items, as opposed to the 72 items you could smelt with 9 individual pieces of coal. So it's great for smelting up a lot of items. If you want, you can actually make 2 more hoppers and take 2 more chests. And I'm going to put these on the sides going into the smokers like that. And then you can load each of these up with more fuel. So once the fuel in the smokers runs out, then it will just pull more fuel in from these side chests. Because this thing needs to run for a very long time, it's good to have extra fuel in the sides there. Okay, one last thing and they'll be ready to go. Throw a lever on the front of each of these smokers. When the lever is turned off like this, then the hoppers will be able to pull items out of the smokers. If you turn the levers on, it will disable, it basically sends a redstone signal through the smoker, which deactivates the hoppers below them, and it stops the hoppers from pulling items out. That's going to be crucial to being able to get XP out of this. So let's go ahead and turn this on. This is going to make a lot of noise, so I'll have to turn the in-game audio down. But this thing should start running now. If I nerd pull up, we look inside. What's happening, I'm not going to pretend to understand all the in-game mechanics here, but something about the gravel underneath the sand moving back and forth causes the kelp to immediately grow. And when the kelp grows, the pistons will break it, and so you can see all the pieces of kelp breaking off. Those get sucked into the hoppers, which get pulled into the chest, which get pulled down into the smokers. The smokers smoke up or smelt the kelp, turn it into dried kelp, which goes into the bottom chest. Now, in order to get XP out of this, you get a little bit of experience for each item that you smelt up. And all of that experience is actually getting banked up in these smokers. And so we actually need to let this thing run for quite a while before we can get the XP out. Now, quick word of caution, while this is running, do not open the chest or the smokers. Just kind of leave the whole thing alone, let it run. I can see that second piston right there, there's no more water coming down, so I'm going to go ahead and switch this off and back on. While this is running, you may occasionally lose one of the bottom pieces of kelp in there. If so, just go in and place another piece of kelp. So I'm going to turn this off. It's not done, but I just want to show you what's going on in here. So this chest is pulling all the kelp down into the smokers. The hoppers down here are filling up with kelp. The smokers are filled up with kelp. The chest down here is filling up with dried kelp. And all of the XP from smelting all this is getting stored up in those two smokers down there. So at the end of the day, it really is just a glorified auto smoker. But the real magic about this is getting this unlimited source of kelp to go smoke this thing. So we don't have to go fish, we don't have to worry about killing a bunch of animals for meat. We just let this thing run and it's just going to endlessly smelt this stuff and bank up all that XP inside the smokers. So I'm going to let this run until I get this whole top row filled with dried kelp, and then I'll show you how to get the XP out of it. Okay, so I let this thing run for maybe 20 minutes or so. I did some detailing work on the outside while it was running, just put in some blackstone steps, replaced some of the stone bricks with mossy stone bricks and cracked stone bricks. I figured with all the water and kelp and everything in there, it makes sense that some of this would have leaked and become mossy. And there were a couple times that the kelp inside broke and the sand actually fell down, so I guess the trick with the gravel didn't really make much difference after all, so you can use gravel or sand on the bottom. Either way, this thing is going to probably require some maintenance. Really only when it's running. When you have this thing on and the pistons are going, that's where things are likely to break. So maybe just keep an eye on it. But because you've got 4 kelp up there growing, I mean, this thing filled up with kelp so fast. I've actually had it turned off for most of the time and just letting it all cook up. So I've got a full row of full stacks of dried kelp, which means that there is a ton of XP banked up in these smokers now. So let's talk about how to get it out of there. So flip both of these on, which will stop the kelp from getting pulled out. At this point, just start taking the kelp out one at a time. You can see my level down there. I'm currently level 23 and just a couple bars in. If I take some kelp out, I'm now 24 after taking a few kelp out. 25. And so just go back and forth taking out one piece of kelp at a time, and each time you remove a piece you'll get some of the XP that's been banked up in there. It's not going to make a difference if you let this thing fill up and get a full stack of dried kelp and then take it all out. It's really just the process of removing something gets you some of the XP. So just go back and forth, take the kelp out, and each time you do, you'll get some of that XP that's been banked. And just like that, I'm back up to level 30. That's maybe 45 seconds of taking dried kelp out. So I'm going to flip these back off, which means that the dried kelp will start going back into this large chest. And that just means that even more XP is going to bank up. So the next time I come in and start taking kelp out of this, I'll be getting even more XP with each one. So the longer you let this sit here and smelt, the more XP you're going to get from it. And you really only need to turn it back on and let it run again when all of this kelp runs out. If you want, I'm going to go ahead and take, I'll take 2 full stacks of kelp out, because kelp is very useful in creating bubble elevators and some other builds. So I want to hold on to some of this. And one last thing before we wrap this up. It doesn't matter how much kelp you have down here. That's not going to affect your rates. So I'm going to take all of this out and come over here and turn it all into dried kelp blocks. So dried kelp blocks are just blocks of kelp. It's like with your coal blocks or redstone blocks, it's just 9 dried kelp gets turned into a block. So these blocks can actually be placed. They make good flooring material if you want to use these in one of your builds, or they can be used as walls. But what I'm actually going to do with these is I'm going to use them as a fuel source. Each block of dried kelp will smelt about 20 items. So I'll just take half the stack and put it in each side here. And when the blocks of coal run out, it'll start pulling in the dried kelp blocks, which will just keep this thing going. So basically it is now a self-sustaining auto smoker. We'll just use the dried kelp that it cooks up to refuel the thing to keep it going. And that way we don't have to waste all of our precious coal or other fuel sources on this build. So that's going to wrap things up for today. I hope you enjoyed this build, and I hope you get a ton of XP from your new XP farm. Like I said, the next couple of episodes are all going to be leading up to the dragon fight, so stay tuned. We'll see how that goes. If you're liking this series, please like this episode and please subscribe so that you can get notified of future episodes as they come out. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.